He did it. Trayton Lapcevich is your 2023 NASCAR Pinty Series champion. Welcome into the Power Hour. It is Cam K here on GeForce TV. A little bit more red in the face, a little bit hoarse of voice, but what a great way to end the 2023 championship season at Delaware Speedway. Tonight on the show, we will chat about the finale. I want to hear a lot from you guys watching. We want to hear how you thought this season was, how you thought the finale was, what you think about going into next year. Talk about how everybody did in the point standings, what dominant of a season it was. We'll talk more specifically to start about the race yesterday, the environment, the crowd. There was a lot of positives, but I just first want to thank you for tuning in tonight here on GeForce TV. I want to throw out a big thanks to everybody at GeForce TV for all they did this past weekend at Delaware Speedway. Adam Ross, Clinton Jeffrey, Greg Calnan, Jamie Maudsley, Abby, Spencer Mullen, Jordan Maudsley, Jack Krutchka, and definitely a fantastic weekend at Delaware Speedway. It was quite possibly the biggest crowd I have seen there for a weekend in a long time. People that were at the track have said potentially as far back as the 90s, they haven't seen a crowd as good as this, which means a great thing. It means racing is definitely succeeding here in Canada. No, obviously, Noah Gragson did play a role in people coming in and coming out to the Pinty's race, wanting to see how he did. He really wasn't much of a factor, unfortunately, not too much. But I also think he kind of didn't need to be. He knows he just needed to come in, do have some fun, and put together a solid race. And we would have gotten an interview. He was a little bit busy. So he wasn't able to do that. But Amber Balkan also made her series debut. It was a pretty well dominated performance by 22 Racing. The whole really weekend, including the APC Series, Kyle Steckley getting his first APC Series championship, which was live broadcast here on GeForce TV. And of course, yesterday with Trayton Lapcevich, who also he doesn't set a record. He ties a record with the great DJ Kennington for the most victories in a single season with 7. A dominating year for a young driver who has a definite talent, just like his older brother, Caden Lapcevich, does. First Ontario champion since his older brother, youngest and first set of brothers to win the NASCAR Pinty Series championship. An awesome thing. First time for 22 Racing to get back to the championship circle since its owner, Scott Steckley, won the 4th of his championships. Trayton Lapcevich is of the age he very well could become the winningest driver in the series, the winningest and most successful product of the series. Kyle Steckley looks to be the next name to come up into the series as well. One of the things that I think we want to touch on here on the show was the effort and the really big presence that Delaware felt like yesterday. Not just the crowd being as big as it was. The entries were stacked. Not as much as maybe we would have expected. 22 entries took the green. There could have been probably a bit more out there, but there is definitely some great things for this series. There's potential change on the horizon for the series as well. We don't know exactly what that means for the schedule, but there's a lot of belief that we have a concrete change happening within the series. I think that fans might not be too surprised to see what joins, but there does appear to be potentially a new track or two coming to the schedule next year. Again, once contracts are signed, once announcements are made, that would make sense. Question marks do lie on some of the other tracks on the schedule. But one thing is for sure is that the excitement level is there. Now, in terms of the race itself, it was kind of embarrassing. The only reason I'm going to say that is because the first half of the race was calamity in terms of cars having trouble. We said goodbye to cars so quickly, including last year's champion Marc-Antoine Cameron, who was out by lap 41. Uncharacteristic for the Paillet Racing team to have an engine issue. And the fact of the matter is, they went all year without a mechanical issue, and the last race of the season, out it went. And unfortunately for the Paillet team, they didn't get to finish out the race. They weren't the only ones to have trouble, though. Brandon Watson also had some trouble out there. Glenn Stiers had trouble out there. Mechanically, Kyle Steckley out there dominating the race. Huge lead. Probably could have been the guy to win the race because he did have the fastest car, it looked like, until it sounded like a shock mount broke, and unfortunately they were not able to finish. He's had fast cars, just hasn't been able to get to the finish a couple of times here at Delaware Speedway. So Kyle Steckley definitely was in contention to win this race, but it didn't work out for him. Amber Balkin's day didn't go very well. The car just didn't seem to be very fast, and on the other side of it too, unfortunately, she was involved in a wreck that took them out of contention. And Noah Gragson, it did seem like that car they had a lot of problems with it. It was an inherited car that was purchased. I believe it's an old Chantel Kalika car, and unfortunately, it did not seem to work very well. They had a lot of issues, it looked like, with the car, and he got up a couple of times. I think he got as high as 7th, but really they seemed to have some sort of mechanical problem where he couldn't seem to carry enough speed. Now, whether or not he could just have been, and Noah, knowing what the situation was, very well could have been just racing very respectfully because of how this was the championship race, and he didn't want to affect anybody's points situation, especially after coming back, being reinstated by NASCAR. He needs to be squeaky clean to get back into the Cup Series or Xfinity Series, wherever he ends up next year. But so Gragson was there. It was good to hear the crowd response. To have a Cup Series driver, a young Cup Series driver, come in and be a part of things. I don't think you would have seen that type of response for anybody. But the fact that we got a name of that nature to come out and race with us, Amber as well. But there's a big difference because when we look at the NASCAR side of things, not as many people follow ARCA than they would follow the Cup Series. So there's a huge difference between that. But Amber was amazing in terms of her interview. She was very excited to be there, really hoping for a good race. Unfortunately, that just didn't seem to be the case. Trevor Monahan also had mechanical problems. And then, again, another name that we don't typically see with mechanical problems was LP Dumoulin. Had issues. Donald Teach had an issue, but they fixed it, so they were good. Unfortunately, Jesse Kennedy, also his race got cut short due to a mechanical problem. So a lot of guys encountered a lot of problems really early in this race. Some damage was had, but there were some names that I want to throw out that had a phenomenal race. And we'll get to the results here. Because I think it's important that we look at how these guys finished up their season, and we'll get to the top 10 in points. They did not release the full championship results from 10th down, so we only have the top 10 here based off of the official report following the race. But we'll take a look here, because 250 laps I think is a great distance to end the season. I think at the well, actually, I don't think we're going to get the results up here, but the overall, to have 22 cars, there was a ton of passing again, and a couple of surprise names. John Fletcher had his retirement race, and maybe not the most competitive car, but moved up a couple places, and that's great for him. I think what I'd like to see is that Casey Jones Racing team come back. Longtime ARCA competitors, Rhett Jones Racing, who, if you guys aren't aware, Frankie Muniz drives for them in the ARCA Menard series. Amber Balkin has driven for them in the past, and Noah Gregson has driven for them. Alex Gannett has driven for them. So there's been a lot of different names. They've had Canadian drivers, Grant Quinlan, Dominic Van Wingeren, run for them in the ARCA series. So they've been around. And, of course, Terry Jones raced in ARCA for a long period of time. And so I'd like to see a new team come into the Pinty series. And this would be nice to see, if Rhett Jones Racing is going to continue in ARCA, that maybe we have a Casey Jones Racing up here. That would be awesome to see. So Trayton Lapsovich did start up on the front row. He was pretty good off the start. Kyle Steckley led it for a little bit, and then Trayton Lapsovich got by him, and then he went back to the lead. But then the car went out, and he only made 98 laps, and it sucks because I think that was probably Kyle's best shot in the races that he's attempted so far. He by far was the quickest car with the pole, and also dominating the first bit of the race. But another name that I think we have to kind of give a little bit of props to, because he was running quite well before they had problems. Glenn Stiers actually looked pretty competitive when he started the race, and then they had a couple flat tires, and then eventually it was a mechanical issue. It states that it's a transmission failure, and that's what happened to take him out. And unfortunately, it's been a year for WMI that they would love to forget. Not a year at all that I think Andrew Ranger or Glenn Stiers are overly proud of. Some improvements were made, but at the end of the day, it wasn't a great year. And speaking with a member of the WMI crew yesterday, and they basically said as much. Yeah, not the best year, and hopefully they'll be able to rebound next year. And it'll be very interesting to see what route they take if we're going to see Andrew Ranger back. Like, there's never any sort of confirmation that guys are going to be back next year. Whether he's going to stay with WMI, whether he's going to go to a different team, whether Paillet has their own second car that they run next year for him. Lots of interest. Jesse Kennedy, I got to interview him before the race. I was really excited to see Jesse out there. He's a longtime racer in Canada, longtime racer in Ontario, especially around the Delaware Speedway, and unfortunately didn't work out for him either, as he had suspension problems, and that took him out of it. Brandon Watson has basically put a cap on his miserable season with another tough race yesterday. A lot of suspension problems, flat tires, and I don't know if he's back next year. I hope we see him back, but I mean, after a year like this, maybe you go and refresh and lick your wounds in the late models and try something a little bit different, because whatever happened in the off season from last year to this year, we know that they made the move from WMI to a DJ prepared car, and I guess it just didn't seem to work, unfortunately. So we'll have to see what happens with him in the 2024 season, what he ends up doing. Amber Belkin, as we said, that car really was a bit of a handful, but she did move her way up. Started at the back of the field and moved up 5 spots. So I'd say that was successful. Pretty good race for her. If she continued to be out there, she would have been able to pass a couple more cars. John Fletcher's race, unfortunately, does end due to mechanical problem. Nothing he can really do about that. And again, big question marks for next year. What happens with Jim Bray Racing's team? They had a multitude of drivers with Daryl Timmers and Malcolm Strawn, and then John Fletcher this year. So hopefully they'll figure that deal out next year, and hopefully somebody can get into that car, or that they had some good runs, but maybe they need a full-time driver in the 98. Trevor Monahan makes only a couple starts a year, but he ended up moving up from 21st up to 15th. Had some issues. He lost brakes, so that's never a good sign at Delaware Speedway. But he was excited to get back out. LP Dumoulin, another tough year for the WeatherTech team. It just didn't seem to be a good race again for them, with mechanical problems, and anytime it looked like they were getting a little bit better, then they'd fall back, and just they had glimpses of good races and just never were able to get to that top step. And unfortunately, Delaware was a bad race for them, as well as Tag. And Tag also had power issues with that car. I believe they ended up having some sort of a battery issue. And he does finish 9 laps down. The car just is not what they needed. So it was getting a little worrisome with Trayton Lapsovich out there if he was going to win the race, because 2 of his teammates had gone out with mechanical problems. The driver of the day, though, Wallace Stacy. He spun twice in this race, and but moved his way up from 20th on the grid and finished in 12th position. So good job, Wallace. I don't know where we'll see Wallace next, if we're going to see him next year. Took a couple races off this year, and so we'll see whether the 66 is back out there. He's a personality and a half, and for him, that's a fantastic race, because Wallace is, he just motors around the back of the field and has himself a time. Larry Jackson was a bit of a heartbreak, actually, because he was up as high as 5th, and just the car faded at the end, and they came out with an 11th place finish. But he was up ahead of Noah Gragson for a large bit of that race, and I think if you asked Larry Jackson a couple years ago whether Larry Jackson would be racing ahead of Noah Gragson, I don't think he would have said yes. Dexter Stacey in 9th place. He fought like hell yesterday with his recap recovery 92 to move up throughout the field. And the guys that finished just ahead of him had probably the best showing for Dave Jacobs Racing in a long time. It was a phenomenal race for JP Bergeron and Thomas Neveu. Just at the end, they had some problems, got moved a couple of times, and Neveu was battling for 3rd place in this race. Where he was at Sunset Speedway at the beginning of this year, a huge change has happened for that driver of the 24. I hope we see him back next year in the Vyram Home Hardware Ford, because he definitely improved a ton. And the smile on his face at the end of this race was, you could see it. You could see how happy he was. I think relieved as well. Top 10s were not something easy for him. And I love seeing guys that maybe don't have the opportunities to run up front as often get up there. JP Berge was up there Bergeron had gotten up to at least fourth place until a restart. And restart chaos, the 80 missed a shift, and he ran right into the back of the 80 car. And unfortunately, it kind of it kind of derailed his race, and then got moved towards the end of the race. Alex Gannett had a good podium run going, and it is a problem when a car spins and sits there and then gets going, but they don't throw the caution. So what happened was Wallace had spun, and all the smoke happened in turn 2, but when the field got there, there was no caution, so they all slowed up thinking there was something, and he got passed by a bunch of guys, and then they got into 3 and 4, and he got spun. So Alex still rebounded, finished 6th. I think that the Assa Abloy Team 3 Red number 3 team, that Gannett pairing has another year on it. So we would expect him to be back next year, based off of the previous talk of them signing a 2-year deal. Great year for Alex Gannett in this organization. I actually think that if they can, and I'm going to say great because of how it finished. It wasn't the best overall, but I think for their first year together, there is a lot of hope for next year. Kevin Lacroix was Kevin Lacroix. He was fast. He and Donald Teach got into it. Teach got into him and moved him, and Lacroix paid him back and spun him. Lacroix was issued a drive-through. However, when coming in for the drive-through, got in a little hot and almost took out the official. Not a good look for Kevin Lacroix in the Napa Auto Parts car. But he stormed back, came through the field, and finishes in 5th place. And the man who was the best person to watch in this race, if you watched the entirety and you were at the track, Andrew Ranger got a flat tire on the warm-up laps and had to come down pit road. So he started last. He ran through the field, and he didn't care how he had to race people. He had to move them. He had to shove them, and he did that. And Andrew Ranger made his way up, and he ends up with a 4th place finish to end the year. The season of hell for Andrew Ranger, one of the most uncharacteristic seasons that we have ever seen the 3-time champion of the NASCAR Pinty Series. This is going to be a very interesting offseason for him, whether or not everything stays the same for next year, whether there is some change, whether J.C. Paillet and the Paillet Racing Team continue to fund for him, whether he's able to race. I would hope so. I hope that partnership continues. I hope WMI still is the solution, whether it is or it isn't. As long as we have Andrew Ranger in the field, that's all I care about. I think that there's, with the talk of Montreal, Andrew Ranger is somebody that I want to see race in Montreal, because he's done it, and he's done it well. The big thing about a lot of the drivers in our series right now, not a lot of them have raced at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in the Pinty series. Only a couple of them have. So this would be a whole different experience for our series if all the talk comes true. DJ Kennington has himself a fantastic last race of the year, because it has been one hell of a season. And he said so. I talked to him after the race, and he said this has just been, you just have one of those years where just nothing seems to go well. and he ended it out with the third place finish. He was battling, trying to get to that lead, just didn't have enough car to get past the 20. Donald Teague was, man, an ageless wonder. The Don is always somebody to watch on the short tracks, and man, oh man, he was so close again at Delaware Speedway to getting a victory. He would have had to do something incredible to get past the 20 car, but Donald Teague once again puts on an amazing performance, even after getting spun, even after having, I believe it was a plug wire come off. They fixed it. They got going, and he came back and finished second again for the second year in a row at Delaware Speedway. And what can we say about Trayton Lapsovich that hasn't already been said? Next year, though, I want to see if Trayton Lapsovich gets to race with his brother on the Pinty Series grid, because I want to see that so very bad. I know Caden Lapsovich has a lot of plans that he wants to race in the United States, which I am absolutely about. If he wants to take those opportunities, still working as a crew chief for Venturini Motorsports, absolutely. But maybe Billy Venturini could also help us out and get maybe the Lapsovich brothers to get an opportunity to race each other in an ARCA race. I don't think there's anybody here that wouldn't want to see that. We want to talk about people that have deserved opportunities, whether people believe, Trayton's gotten opportunities because of his name, whether you think it's based off of people he knows. The reality of this is you can't win races if you don't have talent. It's you have to be able to wheel the car. And Trayton Lapsovich did that. He's shown it for the last 3 years. And he finally arrived. And, his brother did it a little quicker. I think his Caden did it in his rookie campaign. And wasn't it around the series. Not his rookie campaign, but close to it. He really... Caden, I think... set the bar, and Trayton smashed through it, and it sets up hopefully a lot more younger racers that want to be like Caden and Trayton Lapsovich, just like DJ Kennington years ago. There's drivers that are coming into the series that are a lot younger and are going to be a lot more appealing to the younger audience. And I love that the talent level in this series it's got so much young talent that's going to come in. If we can keep the momentum going here, I mean, we know DJ, Larry, Mark, Donald, and even Andrew aren't going to be around forever. There's a lot of names. And I had a conversation with a former Pinty Series driver yesterday that you need succession in a series to survive. You need teams that are going to come in when teams fold. You need drivers that are going to come in when drivers retire. So we got drivers. We don't have any issues with drivers. But we do need to get some cars. We need some more teams coming in. Some new investors. Getting those bigger names to come in and check our series out is great. I think if we get the opportunity to be in Montreal, if the Cup Series is there as a companion event, gets a lot of eyes on our series. Hopefully televised. Even if it's you get Kyle Larson to come race in the Pinty's race if they're in Montreal, or you get Noah Gregson if he's back in Cup, he would do it. He's already done 2 races in this series. Kyle Busch. if we can get more of those names to say, hey, look at this series, that's hopefully a key to the future. Rick says, great year for 22 Racing. 3 championships. And still impressed what Kyle Steckley did this year. Too bad ending it with a DNF. Fast 22. Yeah, I'd say so. Tim says lots of twists and action yesterday. Would have been nice to see Kyle finish to see how things shook out. Wes, only 2 minutes. I'm only 20 minutes late. That's a first. Congrats to the 20. To be fair, in my opinion, Noah's first at CTMP was to get CTMP experience for the Czechs later this season. Absolutely. Yep, absolutely. That's true, Tim. It wasn't like he chose, they were choosing to do it, but that's what I'm saying. If they do it, there's a definite possibility that because the Pinty series could be before, to get additional track time, you could have more guys that want to do it. Now, do I see other guys coming in and running, because we had this conversation yesterday. The cars are so different. Pinty's car compared to a Cup car is nothing like it. The likelihood of getting a Cup guy or Cup team to have a Pinty's driver in the race, not likely unless you're like Tag, who's able to probably get funding to do so. Tyler says, congratulations to Trayton Lapsevich and 22 Racing. What an amazing season. Yep. Tim says Riley Herbst did it at CTMP as well. Yeah, a lot of guys actually have gone through the CTMP route. Austin and Ty Dillon did it. Chad Hockenbrot did it. Jeb Burton has done it. We've had Christopher Bell that's gone through there. Kaz Grala. So there's a lot of people that went that way. Now, we never did get that when we had the Xfinity series participate. I don't believe we ever got any Xfinity drivers in the Pinty's race, the Canadian Tire Series race in Montreal when that was the case. But what we could have, at least, is a lot of people coming in. A lot of people from the Cup Series as well, potentially looking at it. And I think one of the things that I've really wanted to see, and we saw it a couple of times, is a Go Fast Racing. We saw Go Fast Racing Canada, which was based off of their Canadian, based off the American team. I'm not ever going to be opposed to if we got some sort of a Canadian branch of a team. So if you got a Roush Fenway Racing, a Roush RFK Canada, it would be great. Tyler says, and a Cup car is almost the opposite of a Pinty's car. Yeah, that's the problem, right? With the sequential and the one lug nut and 18-inch rims. Absolutely, but if we're talking about just getting track time, that's the only reason I could see it happening. The other side of it too is that exposure. If you get a Cup guy that has a good social media presence to showcase the Pinty series, get those eyes, because Noah Gragson and Amber Balkin brought eyes. No matter what people think about each driver, they brought eyes to the series. They brought social media looks. They got views. It definitely helps to get those names. I would love it if we got some of these. Like I've said before, Kyle Busch Motorsports is somebody who I think would be doing today's Cup car is closer to an IMSA GTD car now. In your opinion, yeah, absolutely, Tim. It's. I'm not gonna go on a lie here, Tim. I don't like the Cup car. I think it's ugly. I'm not a fan of how it sounds. I'm not really a fan of how it looks. The racing itself, take it or leave it, whether you like it or not. I'm such a sucker for the old 2000s cars. Like I didn't watch racing in the 90s. I mean, I watched Indy cars in the 90s. That was my jam back then, and then I started getting into NASCAR in 2002. So I will always love those cars the most. Um, especially if you're going to tell me like the 2002 to 2009 cars were probably before, sorry, 2007. I'm not even no, it's no COTs. Forget that. 2000s to 2007 were my favorite cars. Especially 2002, 2003. I love Pontiacs. I love the Intrepids. Definitely loved the Tauruses and the Monte Carlos. And so seeing what the cars look like, especially the undercarriage too, when you see a car flip over and it's just like this solid matte black flat piece, I'm like, even that looks ugly to me. And the one thing I really can say about our Pinty cars is, despite the fact that we still run Challengers, which I think were introduced in like the 2011 season, they are such a good looking race car. And they sound, I love the way they sound too. So we're lucky in that sense that we have such great looking race cars and good looking drivers and good looking series. It is, you've got the talent there. It is so refreshing to have a season like we had this year, despite, and I'm going to say despite only because I know it can be a sore spot for people, that basically two drivers dominated the year. I mean, in a 14 race season, Trayton Lapsevich won half the races himself. Then you add in Schrader, and then you add in Alex Taglioni at Toronto, and of 17 races, 22 Racing won 10 of them, of 14 races. Kevin Lacroix, Marc-Antoine Cameron, also winning races this year, but unbelievable. There's a lot to look forward to in 2024. Now, obviously, there's a lot of announcements that still have to be made, because obviously the Cup Series schedule, Xfinity schedule, truck schedule, all have to be announced still. Once those are announced, then our series will then eventually get their schedule out, because again, if we have to look at this, there's no way in my mind that we would announce our schedule if we were going to Montreal before the Cup Series. Like, there's no way that would happen. So the Cup Series, they'll get their schedule out, and maybe our schedule, based off of conversations that I've had with some various people within the garage, is that there's going to be change. Additions, I don't know about subtractions, but there's definitely going to be changes. One of the things that I would think is likely not going to happen is I don't see Ohsweken Speedway having 2 races next year. I feel like that was made as because something didn't happen this year. I'm pretty sure. Tyler's question is a big one, and I'm gonna give it to Tim, because Tim's been at CTMP a lot more than I have. I am way more of a short track guy than I am a road course guy. I don't know if the infrastructure is there to get the Cup Series at CTMP. I don't know. The other thing you got to look at, I mean, it's more attractive because it is close to the city. And as much as people might say, well, why would you need that? Because you need hotels. You need amenities. There's going to be, if that happens, there is going to be so much traffic coming into this city of Bowmanville, and they would not have enough. Jim's point to getting 2 guys named Kyle, I can see it. And the main thing I can think of is Kyle Busch is now affiliated Yeah, so the trucks did it with 36 trucks. So the only problem, though, Tyler, with that analogy is they started with 36 trucks, but then towards the end, their numbers started to get lower and lower and lower. Truck Series is way different, Tyler, than the Cup Series. So I'm going to, again, base it off of if you look at it, okay, the Truck Series and the Xfinity Series have their popularity, but it is not on the same level as the Cup Series. There are a lot of NASCAR fans who don't watch any of the other divisions except for the Cup Series. In Tim's opinion, which is the one I care about right now, Cup could race on the track. It's their other needs that probably can't be covered at the moment. And that's the other thing. NASCAR has requirements of these tracks that they have to have in place to be able to even be bidding, or you have to pay the Cup Series to come there. It's not a matter of we want you to come here and then they'll just show up. You have to entice them. And I agree with Tim. There's a lot of things that they would need to do. I don't know facility-wise if it's got enough. Garages start the discussion, and that would be a big one. Both of you guys are completely right. If Jukasa had gotten the Renos, they could have done it. But the same problem with Jukasa, Tyler, is amenities and local. It's not really local to anything, and it's not you need a hub. So with Bowmanville being an hour away from Toronto could be a hub where you can have a lot of these Cup teams housed in hotels downtown. That's kind of a key thing. The other side of that too is having the Cup drivers be able to have amenities like the Rogers Center or the CN Tower. It gives them other stuff to do while they're there. Obviously, you want to be there for the Cup Series, right? That they want to be there to race. But the other side of it too, the railings are always half to a fifth or less for the ratings. Yes. Exactly, Jim. So that's the other side of it too. Cup is always going to get the bigger ratings. It's on more of a primetime schedule, or not primetime schedule. It's more of a regular schedule, and on mainstream network television. Tyler, just sucks that there aren't many tracks in Ontario where Cup guys could race. That is definitely true. Tim says, I always said there was a double race in Ontario for the trucks would be great. Jukasa midweek, then CTMP, or the other way around. Just my opinion. Tim, that's a fantastic idea, and that I would agree. Do I ever think that our company or our government or anybody would allow that? No. It's just... And I also don't think NASCAR would do it, frankly, because they don't want competition with the Cup Series. They want the Cup Series to be the premier series that people go to see. So whether it's, not the same week, I could see it. To me, Jukasa works for the trucks. It's the perfect size for a good short track race for the Truck Series. Or ARCA, very least. But ARCA, there's not enough stability. There's not enough financial support. Jim, does Canadian Tire want to spend that kind of cash to make it happen? No, they don't. I don't believe. I think right now, Canadian Tire doesn't really, I don't believe they do anything at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. So what I mean by that is I believe they just have the naming rights. But all that work is not done by Canadian Tire. It's Ron Fellows and investors that operate that track, right? So I don't know if Canadian Tire is still fully involved. I know they have the Motomaster track that they have there. Obviously, the naming of Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, but I don't know how much they're fully involved with that. I would have hoped, because you have to think about, they're not really involved anywhere else in motorsports right now. They're not in the Pinty series, they're not in IndyCar, they're not really on any sort of, they're not sponsoring races. So it's kind of I don't really know if they would. However, again, big difference between Cup Series and Pinty series. So, Wes, today it was announced that the Toronto Indy is now third week in July. Now that's interesting. Third week in July. So it will be interesting if Pinty's returns, because this year out west races happened during the third weekend in July. That is very interesting. GP3R will stay the same. Date-wise, I'm pretty sure they've already locked that in. Which we can love to see happen on Friday, as next year is the last year of 3-year contract, as well as the last year of the eastbound park contract as well, Wes. So that's in its third and final season. So we do have confirmation. Like, we already know certain things will happen that way. Tim, my idea was about travel. Already in Ontario, so do it. Problem would have been damage to trucks at first race causing issues with getting... yeah. Something like that would be, if it would be in a challenge. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, very true, Tim. If it hadn't have been rain delayed, yeah, absolutely. Oshweek and they could have done some sort of a challenge like that. Tyler, what about Riverside out east? What happened there? My understanding with Riverside, again, is there's intention. They want something. Fans definitely want it. The drivers really want it, but it comes down to money. And if they can get the support, absolutely, they would go back. But again, it's about the cost to the teams. And right now, it is already very taxing having these teams have to go all the way out west and all the way out to eastbound park. I thought like maybe they could do something together, but I don't see it happening. Jim says no Menards where, not sure where that says Julia's is. Jukasa is. Most ARCA races except Daytona, Talladega, where Menards are sponsors, and that local area. Absolutely. Rick, I'm kind of know you're biased about CTMP, but personally I would love for Menards, Xfinity, and trucks for a weekend at CTMP. Again, as to the point of Jim, Menards wouldn't have any interest in coming up here, and ARCA's field is so financially weak. I don't think that they'd be able to do that, because you're not going to have. It's not like what ARCA was back in 2008 when they were at Cayuga. That field was huge, and they had a lot of more like 2008 was probably one of their more successful years in terms of car counts and the people involved in the series were really, really good. So unfortunately, it's not really the same as it was back in the day. Jukasa, like I said, it is still there, so we don't know if it's not gone yet. So compared to like Kawartha, where my understanding is that is starting to get torn down, and it is not salvageable. It's not going to happen. So hopefully, I mean, there's some question marks, I think, for the series in the future is, where do they go? I've kind of said this for a while, and this is not a slight to any other province, and it's not meant that, but the hub of this series is in two provinces. It is. It's on Ontario, and it's in Quebec. The teams and the cars are mostly built here in Ontario. A lot of the drivers and a lot of their investments and the money, partnerships, are all in Quebec. So Ontario and Quebec work together, and we get a series out of it. We've had a total of about 3 drivers from out west the last couple of years that have run. Not a lot that run their own cars. You had 2 that ran their own cars, and now that'll be down to maybe 1. So the West races are starting to get really weak. The fields we used to get a good amount of Western drivers. And with Chantal Kalika and that car being sold, I don't have confidence that they're going to be back each and every week or each and every year. The crowd at Sutherland this year did look really small. Edmonton did a good job, but my fear is the going out countrywide is slowly killing the race teams because the costs are just so expensive to get out there and back. And that's the same for Eastbound Park. So, in my opinion, the safest thing for cost-effective Pinty series is having it between two provinces. A terrible thing for the rest of the country, the racing fans out west and the racing fans out east. So we have to really make sure that costs go down somewhere. Because if you want things to be countrywide, it isn't the US. This isn't NASCAR South, where racing is something that happens almost all year round, where there is a large investment in certain areas of the country. And, racing is hurting because of money, because the cost of being able to do it is just so high. So my big hope is that they can hopefully help these teams somehow with tire costs or registration costs or travel and expense costs, because at the end of the day, those purses need to go up so that the drivers can have a better program, so that they can get more partners, so they can do a little bit better. It is a really hard sell right now. The only way you can travel is if there was money to travel from some type of winner's circle program, but who will pay? That's the problem. Are we making the right decision going all the way out somewhere when if we stay where the money is and where a lot of the fan bases are, not saying that that's all the fan bases, there's fan bases from all over, you kind of need it. Why, sir, the NASCAR, they finish... I can't see what that says, actually, because they put this stupid emotion thing, the emoticon, in the way. I can't really see what it says. If the person says go up, can the trucks afford it? That's the problem, though, too, Jim, is what you need is like show-the-air crowds. And based off of the crowds that we've seen this year, it can be attainable. But you have to be able to, promote the series like nothing else. There needs to be commercials on mainstream television, not TSN only. It needs to be advertisements in papers, in websites, on social media. And I don't know if we can just expect the tracks that they do it. I think NASCAR needs to do that as well. Because at the end of the day, there needs to be some sort of press about events happening. So whether that's left up to the tracks, I don't know. But whoever's in charge of that needs to make a big deal about the series coming there. It needs to be treated like a Cup Series event. And we're really not like that right now. I know it sounds a little crazy, but that's exactly what happens is... we need people to come to these races, and people that maybe don't know racing. As Canadians and as Canada, we have a very multicultural country that I don't believe a lot of people have any idea what racing is. So get them to the racetrack, because guess what? Any new fan that you can get potentially has people in their family, has a business that they operate, has people that they know. that would want to get involved in racing. We've seen it ourselves in a smaller division in the OSS series that there's a lot of people that have never experienced racing. That was a quick race, under 2 hours to be exact. It was 1 hour 45 minutes. Not like serious. Why, sir? The finish it was 250 laps. I'm not sure what you're asking, Kenneth. I'm not sure exactly what your question is. Tyler, also 2 big monitors for NR 2003 shut down today to be able to simulate. Oh no, really? Who was it that shut it down, Tyler? Because I, definitely am I pay attention to that. So I use the NPS mod all the time. So let me know, because that sucks. Because NR 2003 has been around for 20 years. WKC and area, I know it's Area 23. I don't know the Area 23 one, but WKC, that sucks. I think what's missing is sponsors to be involved in the point fund and race bonuses by carrying decals. NASCAR had 15 point fund participants. So it's all about the selling of the series, selling of the programs. And right now, one of the problems I think is we don't really... Is it that NASCAR Canada place on... Is it... I'm not sure, again, what you're trying to say there, Rick. It needs to be, like I said, as a fan, I think what's really cool is when I can go and see a NASCAR Pinty Series commercial on like CTV. Again, it all comes down to budget and money. So I think having Larry Jackson in a Wonder Bread commercial that goes global is exactly what needed to happen, because that's showcasing. Well, we need Trayton Lapsovich in some sort of commercial. We need, and it's not that the work at TSN isn't enough. It's not that the coverage on that and all the work that Joel Robinson and co do isn't enough. It's a matter of whether or not you can reach different audiences. So TSN, you're always going to get the same audience as the fan that's watching racing. So if we can go outside of that to a CP24, to a CTV, CBC, whoever you can get outside of that, start to attract people that way, having Pinty's cars at events, or we talked about it before, having Pinty's cars in like the downtown core for something like that. Where do they stand on point funds? US has no Nextel Cup, very few decals, right? And I like that we have those contingency decals, but if we don't mention anything about them, like, what are we doing for them? It's such a hard thing, because as somebody who's working in a racing series right now, it is so hard to know what to do. They've got people in place. They put on one hell of a season. They have contingency awards right now. The commercials are great, Wes. Absolutely. They're fantastic. But they're only on TSN. So you're only reaching the sports audience, not the casual fan, and only those commercials seem to be on TSN. So Bell Media owns a whole lot of channels. We need that commercial to air on those networks as well. And that's where the whole thing of cost comes into it, because you have to pay for a spot to go, for a commercial to be put on those networks. And a lot of people put a lot of blame on TSN, and that's not how it works. You need money to go to people to be able to promote properly. So if they really want to, and this is the other thing that I think, as a big fan, I want to see next year, promote it like you would if it was a Cup Series. Because sticking it in NASCAR International and sticking it in NASCAR Roots Not saying that doesn't make it come off like a big deal, but we're promoting it as a branch of a bigger entity, as NASCAR. Well, let the people here that run it do everything regarding it. Have a team in Canada that can do all of it. Finding the partnerships, doing the meetings, having the website operated that way. Because I will tell you, as fans, what we see a lot of the times is stuff not being done. And unfortunately, as somebody who hosts a show and is very prevalent on the social media group, I get a lot of these questions. And I get a lot of people complaining to me, as if I have anything to do with it, that, hey, there's no, where are the results, or where's the point standings, or why can't I contact this, or when is this going to be on, why isn't this televised, or why isn't this, and it's, at the end of the day, if you have a team that can handle all these requests, that can handle people coming in, that people can contact, and that people know, it makes a big difference. I think having something, definitely, having something even to showcase to partners would be really important. It's so difficult because I think the momentum is here. We talked about this. The 2023 season is one of the most impressive seasons I've ever seen for one particular driver. It takes me back to DJ Kennington. Now, the difference is when DJ did that, the schedule was smaller than what it is now. A couple races smaller. To win half the series races, it does take a little steam out of the, quote, competition level. Let's be honest, Trayton Lapsevich kicked everyone's butt this year. There's no debate. Marc-Antoine Cameron did that last year. We don't really want that. If I'm a fan, I want to see parity. I don't want to see one driver go out and win all the time. I don't think a lot of fans like that. I think NASCAR lost a lot of fans when Jimmy Johnson won so many championships in a row. Because, and that's the same reason with the Xfinity Series. Why did the Xfinity Series change from no cup drivers being allowed? Is because of Kyle Busch. It's because people got sick of seeing the same driver win every week. So our competition is still there. I'm not going to say that I'm not happy that Trayton Lapsevich won this and that he won 7 races. I think it's phenomenal. I think at the end of the day, though, there is so much stuff that still needs to be worked out because we are so close, I feel, to just being on the edge of getting over top. We definitely need more assistance in the other provinces. Quebec, we're okay. Quebec, their race fans are loyal. Their supporters are huge. The province's support is huge. We need that help here in Ontario. We need it out west. We need it out east. It is a very, very tough thing in this day and age to attract partners. The fact that we've had so many great ones come into this series this year. I mean, if I go through the partnerships that were on the cars for this finale, GSR, Delta Bingo, FBM, RGC Sports, XPN, Group Teej, Castrol Edge, Spark Power, CAM Metals, GM Paillet, Chevrolet Canada, Napa Auto Parts, Valvoline Gates, Asa Abloy, Fast Eddie, HGC, Envirom, Home Hardware, Prolon Controls, Russo Metals, Recap Recovery Drink, Bullies Truck Stop, APC, John Arts Group, Casey Jones Racing, O'Neill Electric, Dayco, Castrol Wonder, K Fiber Optics, Saint Hubert, NTN, Quick Genetech, WeatherTech, OmniFab, Solar Performance Exhaust, Halnor Mechanical, Curb Records, SSP Truck Line, Strode's, Brimstone Games, Glenn McLeod and Sons, Leland, Sheer Metal Products, Canco, Wampum Fuels, Oshwegan Speedway, Chantarelli, APC, Pennzoil, Federated Auto Parts. All on those race cars. That's a lot of businesses already. Tyler says, the Pinty Series needs to be advertised in the U.S. It is. Imagine Scott Steckley or DJ Kennington or Alex Tagliani in a Fox or NBC or CP24 or CTV commercial. At the end of the day, the more that you can spread the coverage, the better it is. It's not an easy thing. And the reality is the team in NASCAR Canada is very small. We have a good amount of people, but they kind of need more. The more people that you have, the more that you can showcase, the more you can do stuff, the more you can showcase the talent. And I think that's what a lot of this is showcasing who these drivers are, what they can do for businesses, because we have to show investment value. You can't just get money from people anymore and go racing with it. That doesn't happen, not in this day and age. Money is too valuable. You don't have the small businesses that can give up as much money as they used to. If it costs $25,000 to race, it's too much. I do want to say my thank yous before we wrap up. And I want to thank each and every person involved in the NASCAR Pinty Series, right from the top. Tony Spiteri at NASCAR Canada, Doug Gonder, the NASCAR director, the series director, Stephanie, the series coordinator, Caitlin Patrick, the social media manager, Olivia Whistle, part of the social media team, Matthew Manor and Merhagen, who do the photography for the official photography for the series. The long list of officials. I met a good amount of them. The countless track workers across all of Canada, the tracks, and all of their partners. The TV and media people throughout. Joel Robinson does such a good job covering and putting together the broadcasts live and recorded. Dean Garapi, one of the crew members that I always see with the camera, is always doing a great job. Obviously, our broadcast team with Clinton Jeffrey roaming around the pits, doing the live broadcast with Adam Ross, Dave Bradley, who does the recorded broadcast and a couple of live ones as well. Canada's pit reporter, Todd Lewis, Kendra Adams, does occasional pit reporting. These are the names of people that deserve respect and deserve accolation, because the amount of work they have to put in to make this series even happen is unbelievable. The was at NASCAR International, Chad Siegler. I want them to see the success that this series has and give us a little bit more, because I think the more that you give, the more you'll see how much of a good thing this is and how much more we can be. Prize, funds, you can't have one race a year that pays great and then everything else a little bit lower. Championships, more interactions with the racers, more interviews, more, and that's the thing. You got to bring more people in. You want to do it? Absolutely. Get out there. There's so many passionate race fans that come in that want to do this. They want to cover the racing. I've met a lot of people at the track that would love to be part of the series. I think the broadcasts have been phenomenal. The live streams have been excellent. The product is there. It's perfect for a future. We just have to make sure it happens. To the drivers, the teams, anybody that has worked on these race cars, the team owners, you are the reason this series happens. You are the reason that we as fans have a series. Without your commitment, your work, your money, your time, and your effort, it does not go unappreciated. And we as fans are so incredibly thankful that you are a part of this series and that we've expanded. The amount of drivers in this series this year has been phenomenal. We've already had over 60 this year alone. We've set new crowds, records. We've set new audience records for this show. We've taken everything to a new level. We got merchandise for the first time in a long time. Everything's trending upwards. Tyler, Mark Dilley out of the seat. Still around, but not racing. This was episode 59 of the NASCAR Pinty Series Power Hour here on J-Force TV. I am Cam K. I've been your wingman for this year. Once again, the 2023 season is officially closed. Now we move on to the off season, and lots of interesting stuff to talk about. Who's going to be back? Who's not going to be back? Is there going to be new manufacturers? Is there going to be new partners? Is there changes in the schedule? The buzz continues, and it'll be here all off season. We'll go through our race review our season review next week on episode 60. I'm going to actually point it out because I need to make sure that I also point these guys out, because there's one still in the chat, and the photographers, the ones that aren't official, the Tims, the Stephen Ellises, the Jack Shanlins, the Damon Sawyers, the countless, the Derek Smiths, Michael Wallace's, James Jordan's, James Jordan's, their efforts to put photos out, Raymond Vigneault, Clem's Pictures, Dave Franks, without them, we don't have as much eye candy. And without their photos, we don't have a ton of stuff to use for promotion. So thank a photographer today, because their efforts as well do not go unnoticed. If you haven't already, make sure you give us a subscribe. Lots of content here on the channel. Of course, coming up, we will have the Humberstone races this weekend. And of course, Race Rivals Race Chat is here almost every single week, along with the Pinty's Power Hour. Not only that, the Autumn Colors Classic is going to be on G-Force TV this year, all 3 days at Peterborough Speedway, featured live here on G-Force TV. What a great thing. How can you not be excited about that? Autumn Colors Classic at Peterborough is always fantastic. Amazing classes across. You've got late models, mini stocks, Oscar hot rods, Oscar modifieds, junior late models. It's such a good show. The Outlaw Midgets will be there. I believe the Ontario Modifieds will be there. Obviously, you ended up with the Electric City 167 on Sunday. Bone Stocks will also be racing out there. So a great amount of fun. But thank you all for episode 59 here on the show. We will be back next week for our season review. And then maybe we'll take some time off and enjoy a little bit of the off season. But if you haven't already, give us a subscribe and a thumbs up. That would be great. For all the fans of the NASCAR Pinty Series, thank you for all you are doing to help keep things going. Without you, the series is not able to continue. So thank you all. Have yourselves a great night. Congratulations, Trayton Lapsevich, on your 2023 championship. To the Lapsevich family, 22 Racing and NASCAR Canada, congratulations on a great season. This is Cam K, your wingman, signing off for the NASCAR Pinty Series Power Hour.